Hello and welcome to my channel of Hey, have you seen this? Where I will be discussing movies from all decades, all eras. I'm very passionate about movies. I love films, and so I'm excited to be able to discuss them and talk about them and maybe tell you about some that you've never even seen before. Which leads me to the first episode of this series, which is, I'm going to title it The Forgotten Films of the 80s. I want to do different films from eras of films that maybe were popular then but have kind of just been lost since, or maybe films that weren't so big at the time and no one really talks about them anymore, which is where comes in the first film I will be discussing today, which is The High Road to China. It came out in 1983 and it starred Tom Selleck and Bess Armstrong. In fact, this was actually Tom Selleck's first major leading role in a film since he became a household name. I'm sure many of you know the name Tom Selleck, famous for Magnum P.I. Currently he's starring in the TV show Blue Bloods. Maybe you know him from Three Men and a Baby, which is was the highest grossing film of 1987. Tom Selleck is a pretty popular guy, and interesting enough, this is a fun fact about him that a lot of people know, he actually was offered the role of Indiana Jones but had to turn it down. Well, he turned it down because he'd already made a commitment to the television series of Magnum P.I. And it turns out that TV show was delayed for 6 months and he could have made Raiders of the Lost Ark. But we have Harrison Ford in that role now, which is, it's an iconic role, but it's just kind of one of those what could have happened. Anyways, a lot of people say that The High Road to China was actually almost offered to Tom Selleck because he didn't get the part of Indiana Jones. The plot is rather simple of The High Road to China. It's a rather simple movie. Basically, this woman named Eve, played by Bess Armstrong, she's a rich girl living in high society, and her dad's lawyer comes to her and says, hey, you're going to lose all your money because your dad's business partner is going to declare him dead, because no one's seen her dad in a while. Unless you find him and bring him back to the courts, that's what's going to happen. And I think in the beginning, I want to say I don't know where it's not in America that it starts off with. I want to say it's somewhere in Africa, if I remember correctly. I could be dead wrong on that, so don't quote me. Anyways, so she hires a pilot, Tom Selleck. He is a World War I fighter pilot who's now an alcoholic and gives flying lessons, which these flying lessons tend to be married women that he is drunk and sleeping with. And so she hires him, or hires his plane. He has two of them. So she hires Tom Selleck, Pat O'Malley, and his mechanic, played by Jack Weston, because he's not a mechanic, Tom Selleck's character, to fly her to her father, who was last seen in Nepal, or somewhere around there. And so they go, and along the way, as they're traveling, her dad's business partner, who's wanting to declare him dead, is hiring assassins and to kill her, and they run into warlords, and in the end, it's called The High Road to China because they are flying to get to find her father. Now, I won't spoil it or anything, but I actually really enjoyed this film. Upon my first time viewing it, I thought it was all right. As I said, it's a rather simple story. There's nothing complicated about it. It's very simple. She's got to find her dad. She hires Tom Selleck. there's romance in it between them, and it's kind of, well, they won't they. It's just a really simple adventure story, which is what I like about it. It wasn't until my second time watching it, because I sat down and watched it with my wife, I wanted to see what she thought about it, that I really enjoyed it more the second time than I did the first time. And maybe it was because I'd finally seen the film, and I was ready to I knew what to expect this time. I'd heard a lot about The High Road to China. Okay, I hadn't heard anything about it. I've read and seen things about it because I've looked into it. Tom Selleck is one of my favorite actors. And this was one of his, like I said, this was his first major starring role since he became a star in the 80s. And so I actually just recently watched it for the first time. It was like November of 2020. And then I showed my wife end of December, beginning of January of this year. And that's when the second time watching, I said, was when I really enjoyed it. I have to give it to the actors. I thought the actors were great. Tom Selleck and Bess Armstrong are really good at playing this whole... the whole time they're bickering. That's what their characters are. They just can't see eye to eye, and they get upset with each other. And then I really think Jack Weston was really good as Tom Selleck's mechanic. He was funny. You could tell that sometimes I would even say there was a better relationship and better chemistry between Tom Selleck and Jack Weston than even Tom Selleck and Bess Armstrong. I liked this film a lot as well because it was clean. There wasn't anything that I was like, it was an all around, like, it was something I could sit down with my family and I'd feel comfortable watching with all of them. You know, the action wasn't over the top. It wasn't gory. There wasn't a lot of language. I did mention that, yeah, Tom Selleck's character is sleeping around, or is known in this area for sleeping around, but you don't ever see any of that. It's just said. So I would, like I said, I would sit down with anybody of any age and I'd watch it with them. I'd feel safe doing that, which is something I enjoyed. One thing I really enjoy about it. I can't not talk about this movie without mentioning the soundtrack. I love the soundtrack for this film. If you're anyone who loves listening to film scores, in my opinion, this is a must. You have to check it out. It is composed by John Barry, who's one of my favorite composers of all time. Might be my favorite. He's most famous, or most known, for creating the iconic James Bond theme, and went on to compose several of the film scores for the James Bond series. But he's also done things like Out of Africa, Dances with Wolves, which is another one of my favorite soundtracks. But The High Road to China, it's such a beautiful soundtrack. And I will say at times, it feels like the soundtrack might be a little out of place in the film. There's moments where you're supposed to feel danger, but the music doesn't. It's almost like it's playing too much serious or danger, and I don't feel that there's that much. I don't know. It's something, if you've seen it, or if you go out and film it, like, comment below and let me know your thoughts and if you agree with me on this. But I would recommend it to anyone. If you're a Tom Selleck fan, if you're an adventure fan, if you just like a simple story, if you're looking for just an easy film to watch, The High Road for China is for you. It's great. It's got action, romance, adventure. There's a little bit of humor in there. It's one of those films that there's a lot in there that most people can enjoy. Some fun facts about it that I know. While promoting the film, Bess Armstrong said that she had to wear 5-inch heels or stand on boxes in order to appear more taller, because she's not a very tall person, and Tom Selleck is a very tall person. I don't know, I'm not exactly, I want to say like 6'5", something like that. Tom Selleck's tall. And so in order to appear taller, she had to wear these 5-inch heels, or just to make her just a little bit bigger than she was. So it made about $28 million, which adjusted to today is like between like 73 and 75 million dollars. So you think, oh, that wasn't like a huge, that wasn't a lot of money, but adjusting it was a hit. It definitely was, and for Tom Selleck it was a hit. I mean, the budget was, I've seen different amounts, but they are between like 15 and 19 million. So it was a hit for Tom Selleck, and so this is just it's a good film. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. And as I said, I would recommend it to anybody who's just looking for a fun film with romance, action, adventure, a little bit of drama, comedy. It's got something for everybody in it. So I would definitely